Hi, my name is Asad Irfan, and this is I think second tutorial of SDN. And in my one of the other videos, I was talking about how to install Mininet. And in this video, I will be teaching you guys how to actually run through the very basic tasks and the basics of Mininet, along with how to use Wireshark, how to observe packets, and create simple network topologies. For that, I will be using the very basic level Mininet tutorial that is present on GitHub, GitHub, and it's one of the best tutorials on the internet for the beginners who are working with the SDN. So I will type on Google basically open flow tutorial. That's it, and from that you can open this tutorial. Okay, this link. Actually, I am using Google for Google search engine for accessing these websites because their links keep on changing. That's why I can't rely on a specific link. So let me discuss of what I will be discussing and explaining in this video. So first of all, this is the first step is basically set up VM tools, learn tools, run provided hub. So we have already set up our virtual machines. It is in one of my other videos. You can watch that. Now we will study how to use those tools that have been provided with the Mininet default installation. After that, we will turn that hub into an Ethernet switch. Then we will modify a switch to push down flows. Then we will add multiple switch ports. Then we have several options, like we can modify switch to handle IP forwarding, run switch on a real network, add firewall capabilities to the switch, or whatever you want to do with your SDN platform. So let's start. And I'm not going to read the repositories. Okay. So you can read this stuff, that how everything is done. So this first step is basically about the regression test. I'm not interested in teaching you about the regression test. So let us move on to learn development tools from here. Okay. So here it is a basic introduction. So what is a VirtualBox? We already know about it. SSH is basically when you use your Windows computer, which is in this case Windows 7, and you SSH or you log into the Mininet virtual machine. So you can read this stuff on your own from the link, but it's better that you just follow along with me in this tutorial. Now, what is Xterm? Now, Xterm is basically that Xming software which I am going to start, and as it will run in the background. So actually, maybe here you're seeing my picture. I can't really show you, but it is probably running in the background. You will see an X, and here is an introduction of Opal. What is an Opal flow controller? What is an open flow switch? And we have different open flow options, and this is one of the important tool in OVS off kettle. I call it OVS off kettle. It is basically let's leave it right now. We get Wireshark, which is a network analyzer. It is a graphical utility as it's written for viewing packets. You can control packets, and you have to view packets basically on port 6633. IFRF, in a very simple terms, it's a server, and it creates a quick session between a client and a server, and you can test bandwidth, you can search the link capabilities, you can set up an audio server, you can set up a video server. And after that we have Mininet, and finally we have Cbench, which is a utility for testing the flow setup rate of open flow controllers. Now starting the network. So this is the very basic network topology that I will be starting very soon. So let's go. First open our Oracle VM VirtualBox. Okay, in that I will be using this tool right here, because it has some other stuff and I'm used to it. Otherwise you can open this, it's one and the same thing, because I've added some extra softwares in that. And I have separate videos on that as well, in which you can learn how to install separate software inside Linux, because I assume in these videos that you don't know anything about Linux. You are someone who is really new into this stuff and is getting problems with the installation, how to run Mininet, because Linux is without a graphical interface is definitely a difficult operating system to use. So I will write Mininet in the password. I will again type Mininet, and I will gonna clear this step as usual. Config -a, and here is my OVS system running. So I will use eth1 sudo dh client eth1. Okay, I got an IP address. If config eth1, so it's 192.168. Okay, I can open cmd. From there I can mininet minus, sorry, it's basically putty.exe minus x mininet at 192.168.56.102. That's it. Okay, so this is I just SSH'd into my system, and it's basically useful because you can just copy and paste commands from this computer screen. So let me explain you a little bit about the topology that I will be emulating in a while. So in this topology I have an SDN switch, and this switch is an open flow switch. There are other switch options available, like open vSwitch, and open vSwitch, for controlling that switch you have to use OVS -cattle, and it is one of those utility that lets you enable and do all kind of stuff with that switch. I have 3 hosts, and in my topology it's basically an old tutorial, otherwise it should be H1, this should be H2, and this should be H3, but it really doesn't matter because it really depends upon the tool, upon basically the Python script. And in my separate videos I will be explaining how to edit Python scripts. Now these are the interface numbers. You can consider this H2ETH0 as the network card of this host. Similarly, for this is H3ETH0, this for this H4ETH0, and these are basically the ports, or you can say the interfaces that are connected. Now to find these numbers, it's probably not easy. There are steps, but in this short topology and this short course, I'm just giving you basics. So this SDN switch will be controlled by this network controller, and when we will start our network topology, we will use a remote network controller, and that network controller will not be enabled on default. It really depends. So we can use another utility called dptcell, dpctl, sorry. Now it is a user space process that can install flows in the open flow switch, and it again uses the same loopback interface. Now to start a network in your Mininet topology, you have to focus. Okay, now this is important. This $sign in Linux is important. I forgot to tell you about in my previous video. This $sign basically represents that, sorry, you are a basic user. You are not a root user. Because if you were a root user, you would have this sign, and in the host we will get this hash. This hash is actually called an octotrope. Octotrope, OCTHROPE, octotrope. You call it octotrope. So if you are a root user, you have this octotrope. Otherwise, you have a $sign. So start the Mininet topology. This is the exact command that you have to use. Now let me explain you a little bit about this command as well. This command says that, okay, let me have some administrative privileges. After that, I will be starting a basic Mininet software. In that Mininet script, I am using a Python function which is --topo. It's basically a class. I am defining my topology. It is single, okay, linear, and it has 3 hosts. So this is the 3. Now these are default scripts that come along with Mininet. --mac options give you some defines easy MAC addresses. So you will have a MAC address for this host as 00:00:00:02. Similarly, for this one, you just have to replace the 2 with 3. In other cases, you have MAC addresses like it's like mumble jumble stuff. You have FG6924, so it's easy to recognize. And they are using switch OVSK, which is okay. Now I forgot here, but it's OpenV switch. Okay, it's OpenV switch they are using, and you have to use a remote controller. This is exactly how you have to copy the command from here. Open your, okay, just simply right click here and it will be pasted. Click enter. That's great. We have a network. It has added a controller, but it is unable to contact the controller. It has added 3 hosts, H1, H2, as I told you. So consider this host as H1. It added a 1 switch, added the links, H1 connected with S1, H2 with S1, and H3 with S1. It configured the host, and the Mininet is starting. You can see this sign here. It shows that now we have Mininet running. Okay, so there are some basic commands to list the list of nodes available. You just have to type nodes, and you have available nodes as C0, H1, H2, H3, S1. This is all we have. To see a list of available commands in the Mininet console, type help, and you can have just a whole bunch of all the commands that are available so far. Now here comes some little tricky part. When we were configuring our Linux system, we used to type like this: if config, and after that we would type let's suppose h1 eth1. In Mininet the case is reverse. You have to type h1 if config in order to see the network configuration. Now let me guide you. This h1 if config shows us that it has a network interface which is h1 eth0. So this is h1 eth0. Now this is h2, so it has h2 eth0. If it was h1, it had h1 eth0, and it has an IP address which is 10.0.0.2, and as it's h1, so the assigned address is this. And you can see the MAC address, pretty simple. And this is the broadcast address. This is the network mask. And okay, that's it. Let's move on. So what we have got, okay, xterms. Now the xming software that we started, it lets you to open hosts in a separate window. So what you have to do is type xterm h1, so it will open a separate window. Now this is h1 host, so you can consider that now from the Mininet I am inside the h1 host. Consider it as a separate computer. As you can see this $sign, I am root user now. I can close this one and I can type xterm h2, and you can see that here I have a $sign again. This is host h2. It is pretty useful if you want to like ping these softwares. You can also open them alongside. So if you want to ping this server, if you start in an iPerf server, you can observe traffic in the real time. So it is pretty useful command. You should know it. It's one of the basic commands. After that, he's saying us to simply close. Now to close any software or any application that you are running on your Mininet Linux interface, you just have to click Control and C. Control C. Again, it's nothing working. I don't know why. So type exit. Okay, so it stopped, switches is stopped, everything is stopped. And this sudo mn-c command is basically used to clean everything. So my network is now totally clean. I can type clear to clear my screens as well. Now this dpctl usage. Now how to use this dpctl stuff, I can say. So because we are not running any controller, so for that reason they are using dpctl, and it will install flows. Otherwise, if you are running a separate controller, it can install flows. And in my other videos I will be guiding on how to use the controller, because it really eases the stuff for you. You don't have to install separate flow each time. So as I close my topology, I am going to run it once again. So it's running once again. Now it's saying me to create a second SSH window. So for that, I have to come to my CMD and Mininet. That's it. And it will show me this dpctell. Basically initiates the dpctell command, basically program. Shows me the flows that are currently, because we know that SDN is a flow based. So it will show me the current flows that have been installed in my SDN switch, and you have to specify the switch IP on which it is running. In current case it's LO with loopback address, and the port is 6634, and you have to press enter. So here it dumps out some few stuff here, and it is basically there are no states. It's basically empty. There are no flows installed currently. And one other thing, that if you are familiar with a language that is okay, just leave that. Okay, let me install. Okay, so what this has done is it showed us if there are any flows. If showed us how to, basically for flows you have to use, oh sorry, what did I type here? So basically, I'm sorry, this show command actually shows us the states of the switches, and this dump flow command tells us how to use to review our flows that have been currently installed. So basically, I think there is one flow that is available, or it's because this dpctell utility is not very useful when you go to the controllers, so it's just for testing purposes. So okay, we have no flow so far. I'm 100% sure at that. And JSON is actually the language that lets you read this stuff, and it's basically easy, but I'm not very used to that language, so I can just say you that there are no flows installed so far. So I will try to ping and 3 times the H2 host, but it will not be able to do so because there are no flows installed, and this is what the echo request replied me. So destination host unreachable. So what I'm going to do is to copy both of you. Let me just copy single command, and I'm adding a flow, as you can see, at my switch in port 1 action output port 2. So this is pretty simple. That it says you that if the data enters at the host in port 1, so output as an action to the host port number 2, and to port number 2, host 2 is connected. And similarly, I can copy this one, paste this here, and as Linux administrator you can press the up key to see is there any flow. So you can see that there are 2 flows installed. Now there is a time limit, and that time limit is I think just a few seconds. I will just try to ping to show you that it really works. I just copied it from here, and now you can see that I'm getting replies from host 2. After some time you will not be able to get replies. That is basically because the hard time limit has been reached and the flows are removed. Now I will start Wireshark. Now this is pretty hard. Just copy this command which says sudo Wireshark, and it will let you start. And I will use this window again. Okay, I'm not going into details of how Wireshark works, because you can find, if you know how to use Wireshark, the important thing in that is that you should have to add this in your actions. If you are not used to with Wireshark, just Google it and you can find just a lot of videos on how to use Wireshark. And I will probably, if you need that, just request me, I will record a separate video. You have to add this in the actions, basically the filter, and if you add this in the filter, it will packet the open flow, basically filter the open flow packets for you, because we don't have IPv4 IPv6 packets running in the SDN switches. We have a new protocol IP packets, open flow packets. Okay, in the Mininet console you have to use iperf. Now I am not a big fan of iperf because the next video is about basically what iperf does is, let me show you. It tests the bandwidth, and if you add several options with that, it can also tell you about the video bandwidth or whatever you want to try to do with your server. So it will take some time, and finally it will show me the bandwidth between two hosts, which are H1 and H3 in my present case. And in my second video I will be teaching you guys how to create a learning switch. But what I will be doing is basically, instead of creating a separate switch, I will just use the code because the programming is really difficult. In fact, I was talking to one of the HP network developer, and he told me that even people like me, like us actually, who have been working with the network scripts, Python scripts, for designing a simple script for SDN or any other network is pretty difficult. So it's like a steep curve even for them. So for people like us who are really new to this stuff, it's a difficult thing. I will show you where the learning switch is located, and with that I will also, in my other video, I will control a slice of a real network. In the slicing, basically we use FlowWiser, and for that I have separate videos on my channel regarding FlowWiser. So let us see what are the results. Oh, it's not starting. There might be some problem. I just Control C, and I'm just gonna exit, and that's it. If you have any questions, you can type and I will answer your questions. Thank you. This was for today.